Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be teaching you how to make a board wreath tonight. You can get this board at Hobby Lobby for a very economical price. I'm also going to be using some Polypro mesh ribbon, and I'm also going to have a coordinating color. I will also be using some variations of ribbon and a smaller Polypro ribbon mesh as well. So any of these supplies you can kind of mix and match. I'm going to do a snowman themed project tonight, so I'm trying to keep everything in the reds and the whites, and I'm also going to include a little bit of the black and white. So once I decide which of these I want to pull together, I will go ahead and sort my pieces. In addition, I'm also going to be using other little embellishments to make the wreath have some extra character and stand out. So I have a variety of different little picks that I have purchased that I'm going to sort out. I do know that I want the snowman to be the center point, but I'm also going to be using some others with some greenery and maybe some snow ideas. So this is a great time of year to pick out things that you want. Hobby Lobby always has their stuff for Christmas on sale, so you can get all of these supplies for 50% off and make yourself a wreath relatively cheap. So I'm going to start by preparing all of the particular ribbon that I want to use. And I'm going to cut my ribbon strips into 14-inch pieces, so I can easily count these boxes to do that. So I need to cut right here. And these are 14 inches long is what I am choosing for my ribbon. And I'm going to go ahead and cut 8 of these in this print. And then I've also prepared some other prints as well. And so I'm going to be alternating mine with the varying prints to ensure that I get some variation. But I'm going to cut 8 of the wide, 8 of the snowman, and then 8 of this narrow, because the way I'm going to put these together is by stacking them, and that will be varied. So I'm probably going to do all 8 with the buffalo, and then I may vary the snowman with the polka dot, and then use this little piece that looks like kind of a snow texture to go with the others. So you will need to cut again at least 8 strips of 2 or 3 different ribbons depending on what you like. If you want, you can also add the red mesh as even another component, because it's even wider than my buffalo print, and you can make this as festive as you want depending on which ribbons you want to use and if you want to use the mesh. So I'm just going to play around with what design I like, and I'm going to go ahead and have out 8 of each of these cut so that I can just pick and choose and vary those prints. In addition to cutting the ribbon, you will also want to go ahead and cut 16 pieces of the poly mesh, and I'm going to be using a combination of that as well. So I have gone ahead and cut both of mine. So when you cut the roll, this is the poly mesh cut in 22-inch strips. So 14 inches on the ribbon, 22 inches on your poly mesh. And I have cut not only the one that is kind of with a little snow look, but I've also cut those in white. You're going to need 16 strips of the poly mesh in whatever color you choose to use for your wreath. So The way I determined that I needed 16 for the mesh that I cut is because there are 16 double openings that are on the second row, and each of these is numbered, so you can count from the outside in. So when I make the wreath, I actually work from the outside ring to the inside ring, and I am using zip ties. You can also use the craft sticks that are bendable, the pipe cleaner sticks if you prefer. I just prefer the zip ties, and I'll just zip tie my ribbon and my mesh into place as I go. So you are going to need 16, and if you were to count the double sets here, that is going to be how I got the fact that I need 8 for all of the pieces that are going to have the ribbon attached to it. So I'm just going to begin by getting zip ties in place. You can put zip ties all on the board at one time and have them ready, or you can put a zip tie as you go. I'm going to start by preparing my ribbon. So I want all 3 different sizes to be stacked, and I'm also going to add this one on the top since it's even a 4th size. And the way I like to organize these is to just slightly alternate them a little off center from each other. And then I'm going to just come in here, kind of fold it over and make sure they're about the same distance folded in at the center point. And once I see about where my center point is, I'm going to just open this back up and bring these together and just cinch in the center of this, and that is going to give me all of my pieces kind of in a way that I can put them on my wreath. Then we're going to just flip this up so that we make a little hook, because we want these to come off the board kind of like this. And so then we just pinch it up, and that is going to be how I get all of these ribbon strips prepared before I adhere them to the board. And you can just take one of your clips from sewing, because they are great for just holding these in place for you. Also, if you're using wired ribbon, that helps too. But you can just prepare all of those and just take a clip that you would sew with and just kind of hold that in place, and that way you can work through and get all 8 of those stacked the way you want those to go. So now we're also going to prepare our mesh. I am going to roll in this raw edge, and once I get that, I am going to just back and forth pull this together kind of like I would a fan. So I'm just going to bunch it up into sections. And then when I get to this end, I want to fold in this raw edge, and that will have the mesh that we need here. And so once you have that in place, then you will also make sure that you have that prepared, and that is how you are going to put your mesh onto your board as well. So you are going to take a piece of that mesh, and once you have it rolled up the way that it goes, like we just did, you will just put it into your zip tie, pull your zip tie down to tighten that, and then you can come right here and just go ahead and clip that with some cutters, and then you will go right next to it at the next opening, and you will continue until you've laid all 16 of your mesh pieces all the way around row 2. So once you get all 16 of the outside done, you can tell that it's already pretty full. The next thing is to take one of your clipped sections that has the ribbon, and you are now going to start adding those with your zip ties onto the next row and start putting those into place. And you will just continue until you have all 8 of those in, and you can just start positioning your ribbon the way you want it to look and kind of spreading that out. And then you're just going to continue all the way around until you have that entire section filled in as well. So now that all of these pieces, the 8 ribbon sets that you had, are put into place, Now we want to focus on what to do in here for the center part. So I'm going to just sit this aside for a moment and show you what I'm using for the center point. So I want to use these 3 embellishments that I got. And so I like to just position them and figure out, you know, what will look good and kind of stack them the way that I want them to go on the wreath. And once I figure out what I like the best, where you can see everything, I'm just going to take some of this floral tape that I have, and basically I'm just going to wrap this around all of it at one time to kind of hold it in place so that it doesn't come apart before I figure out where I want to adhere it within the board. So you'll just kind of play around and position things to get them where you want. And once you have that situated and get this wrapped really tight, then you'll be ready to go to how to place all of this in the center. So before we do the center point, I do want to point out that you need to make sure you're aware of where the top is considered to be. So you will notice the spacing that is between all of these is wider, but you will have two spots at the top where you can tell a loop will go for you to hang something. So just make sure you flip it to the back and kind of look for that spot so that you can go ahead and make sure that when you do everything in the center that you have it where that hook is going to go. So now to finish off my wreath, I'm going to make a layered bow to go in the very center. So you're going to start with a 12-inch tail for your ribbon, and then you are just going to slide that and come to the other side and pinch it. And whenever I pinch it, that's going to give me my first loop. So I'm going to take my loop back over to line up where that would be 12 again, pinch again, and do a second loop. So that's 2 loops of my bow. We're going to continue keeping the loop over here, pulling it again. I'm going to do a 3rd loop, making sure to keep the right side of the bow always facing up. And we're going to do this one more time just for a 4th loop. And then we're going to also roll out one more and cut that so that we get 12 right here also on this part. And that's going to give us a layered bow. And what you can do is just take these pieces that you've got pinched here, and you can take a piece of floral wire, or you can take an actual pipe cleaner of your choice, and you can just position these and hold it in place to make your first section of your bow. And then once you have that pieced and pinched, you're just going to set that aside for a minute, and we are going to repeat the same process with the next size bow down that we want to use. So I'm going to do the polka dot the same way, but what's going to be different is now I'm going to make this one 2 inches smaller. So I'm going to measure, instead of 12, we're going to do this with 10, and then I'm going to do it a 3rd time, and I'm going to stop with this one at 8. And if you want to do a 4th one, then you would stop that one at 6. And we're going to have 4 different sized bows that we're going to stack together. Okay, so now I've made 4 different bows with 4 different ribbons, and I am just going to now actually stack them all together just like you see them. So I'm going to start with the black bow. I'm going to keep everything held in place, make sure everything is turned outward the way it needs to go. And then I'm going to stack this one next, removing my clip, keeping my hands bunched for the second one. I'm going to come in now with the 3rd one and have that one as the next layer. And then I'm going to come in and layer with my 4th bow, keeping everything together and kind of bunched in the center. I'm going to take a red pipe cleaner here that I have and just loop it around the center of all 4 of these, grabbing all of them, and I'm just going to twist it around really well and really tight. And this is going to help me keep all of these layers together for the bow. And then once I have the pipe cleaner on there really well, then we can come back out here and start positioning all the layers of the bow and just kind of fluffing it to look the way that we want it to look as best we can. And we're going to add this to the very center point of the board where we have that open space. But before we do that, we are also going to add our embellishments that we have held together with the floral tape that we used. So I'm going to show you how to piece all of that together as well. Also, before we do that, if you want to dovetail your ends of your ribbon to get everything to look the same, you can fold your ribbon to the outside and cut this direction, and you will get the dovetail look. So for the very center of the wreath, I'm going to roll the mesh this time. So I'm going to have something to just kind of hold that down in place for me, and I'm going to take the raw edge on the other end, and I'm just going to roll it in halfway. I'm going to move my scissors, place it on the side I've just rolled, and now I'm going to roll the other side all the way in until they meet. And that will give me this little roll. And just like we did before, I'm just going to pinch it so that it looks like this. And I'm adding 2 of these into the center of my wreath. And I have slipped this little set down in there by bending the bottom. And I will zip tie any open space in the middle, this down, and then I'm also going to come back on the other side and do this little roll with a zip tie, and that is going to finish off the center part of the wreath and completely fill that in. Make sure that you have this where it will hang as the center point. So my center ribbon is on this side. So if you want the snowman to be upright when you hang him, then you may want to make sure you position it that way. If you want it off to the side, then you could, of course, leave it as it is. So you'll have to just finagle that and play around with that depending on where you have your center ribbon that is hanging. So once that is done, I am going to come back with the bow that we made and open a space here at the bottom on one of the outside rungs where we had a single opening, and I'm just going to attach that single bow down at the bottom. Okay, so now I went back and added 3 of the rolls just to give it a little bit more full texture in the center. And before I added the 3rd roll, I zip tied the stems of this to the board in addition to zip tying this down. And now we have a full and completed wreath. If you want your bow as an extra feature, you can zip tie the bow to go right on the bottom, and you can adhere that right at the opening that is going to be at the bottom of your wreath. If you don't want the bow there, you could leave it just like it is and not use it, or if you wanted, you could attach the bow off to the side just to fill it up on one side, and that just gives you several options to choose. If you like it the way it is, then you can carry on with it just filled in with the little rolls in the center, and you have a completed wreath. Just a little tip, if you have little frayed edges of your ribbon, you can use a little lighter and kind of singe those, and that will stop the fray on those. And also, if you have a piece like on the mesh here If you heat that up, it will melt down and you can just kind of press it in, and that will keep that from unraveling as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that you make yourself a beautiful bow and tag me in a post and a picture of it. I would love to see it. So like, share, comment, and if you want to see a different version of a wreath that I have, I just uploaded a short this week using a grapevine wreath. All right, thanks for joining me for this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and check out that tutorial.